The reason that I pursued the idea to build out my own space was I had been bought out of my previous studio, which was just south of the Wynwood district. When I found the opportunity to buy this lot, really that's when the ideas flooded on what would be in line with my ideals in a live-work environment. The urbanism of it would be the use of used shipping containers as well. I have a philosophy about using repurposed or refurbished materials. I find that the materials come with a history. I find it much more attractive and much more interesting, and I like the textures that it brings to a newly created space. In the model, you'll see my first office right there is the Airstream, which is still obviously on the property. Then over here, you'll see the long nano-wall door section right there. And then we have our two roll-up garage doors. And then there's the cantilevered container on top of the workspace created with these other shipping containers there. And if you can follow it around to the top, you have an upper deck that you can walk across on. And we'll get you to the other adjoining container here, which can then be, you can walk through spiral staircases within, and then you're able to walk into the exhibition space. Yeah, I kind of like to go with brutalist, Afrofuturism too, in a way. I mean, it is future forward thinking. Well, the brutalist aspects would be the excessive amount of concrete, the columns, the largesse of the columns themselves, the steel beams that were used to prop up for the second level could be considered a brutalist aspect. Brutalism is also about the proportions. So sometimes it's how the proportions work in opposing, like, say, the glass. It's like the daintiness of certain materials or the fragility of some of them and how they are butt up against the brutalist aspect of the other joints. It was a very interesting and inclusive experience with the neighborhood. I spoke to many of my neighbors about the project. Many of them came by, and while I was there in my Airstream office, people would frequently, ask me questions about the build. Many of the kids would come by on their bikes, and they were having a blast riding through the construction site from time to time. And I think it served, in some ways, it really it inspired a lot of people in the neighborhood who wanted to learn more. I can't even count how many people have actually been driving down I-95, they say, and then pulled off the highway and came and found my space because they wanted to ask me about how I was able to build with the shipping containers. As an artist designing this house, I was constantly pushing the boundaries on the engineering aspects of things and trying to also push my engineer and my architect to think of things a little bit differently and show that although things looked precarious, they weren't, and there were ways that we could get around that. And then again, I'm sure many architects deal with this, but I was dealing a lot with sight lines because of the proximity to the I-95 and the so much of noise pollution happening around the area. It was paramount for me to figure out ways to limit the visibility and buffer myself from that sound, but also being inclusive in the design of keeping all the trees and all the vegetation around. So that also served to give me shade, and it also served to buffer a lot of that same noise. Personally, I sought out a black architect, and then in turn, I found not only a black contractor, but a black female contractor. The focus on black architects is really important. My good friend and architect, Gary Williams, who jumped onto this project reluctantly, from his point of view, he didn't know many other black architects. In light of what's going on in the country and whatnot, it's one of those things we need to see more people being creative in a way that relates to their environment and their cultural upbringing. I think it's invaluable to be inclusive, to allow more people to have a say and more people to have a voice for their own ideas.